Here we are at question number 8 of Logical Reasoning, drill set number 2 from lawhub.lsac.org. And as always, we're going to begin by selecting our highlighting tool, which is already chosen in yellow for this problem. And we're going to identify the question task first. And in this case, question A states the argument is most vulnerable to criticisms on the ground that it. So most vulnerable to criticism just indicates that we've got some sort of flaw. And we know that when you have and identify a flaw task, you want to try to proactively identify that flaw if you have an in real life situation that's relatively easy to understand. So, moving to the paragraph on the left, the common belief that on average people read less poetry now than they did 50 years ago is almost certainly false. The poetry journal Tulip periodically surveys its readers, and the latest survey reveals that its readers now read on average 7 poems per week. Tulip's survey from 50 years ago revealed readers averaged just 3 poems per week. So the conclusion should be readily apparent, and as always, we do want to highlight the conclusion as the only statement that gets highlighted in a general argument task question such as this. But hopefully you can predict what might be a flaw with this, because we're extrapolating from this one periodical survey. I don't even know how frequently this survey occurs, from a poetry journal about how many poems per week the poetry journal's readers read to the entire population of all people on average. So hopefully in your mind, you already have the idea that maybe surveying poetry journal readers isn't representative of the overall population. And it goes a bit far in this argument to make a blanket claim about how much poetry the average person reads solely based on this subset of the population. So we have that. We've got an unrepresentative sample as the predicted flaw before we go to our answer choices. So starting with choice A, overlooks the possibility that the journal's readers, both past and present, have consistently overstated the amount of poetry they read. Well, consistently overstated means that it went from like 3 to 7 and it should have been 2 to 6, which doesn't really change the impact of the evidence, even though it's too restrictive of a sample size. So we can highlight that as not being our flaw. Choice B uses as evidence a sample that is unlikely to be representative of the public at large. Well, when you've got a prediction and you can find why the answer choice matches that prediction, go ahead and highlight that reason, select B in this case, and we're going to go quickly through the remaining answer choices after identifying B as likely our correct answer. Choice C mistakes a necessary condition for a sufficient condition. There is no conditional logic here, but this is a trap that you might convince yourself of if you're not competent fully with necessary and sufficient logic. And it often just kind of becomes a de facto if you're not being more proactive in terms of your predicting, as we did at the outset of this question. Next, choice D fails to answer the possible objection that the Poetry Journal has a larger circulation now than it had 50 years ago. Well, there is no possible objection. This doesn't match our prediction. B did. I could try to talk myself into choice D, but even if it had a larger circulation, how much larger? That's pretty ambiguous as well. So we can eliminate D for being vague, and I probably wouldn't have even spent this much time on it in the actual exam if I knew B was exactly what we expected. And then choice E causes an effect of a phenomenon with that phenomenon's cause. Again, it's not about causal logic. It's not conditional. It's not causal, but these are the types of technical answer choices that folks can talk themselves into if they're not proactively predicting for a real life situation such as this and choosing B pretty readily, because that hopefully was a rather obvious flaw in this argument as soon as we read it.